Is this all a big trap? In today's video, we're discussing just that. Let's roll the intro and get right down into it. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another rather cold walk and talk here in the United Kingdom. Today we are discussing Bitcoin spot ETFs and whether or not this BlackRock spot ETF for Bitcoin is in fact just a big bull trap designed to grab as much liquidity out of the market as possible and will only actually see a massive move to the downside. Right, let's get right down into today's video. So, as you guys know, and as you guys are probably all well and truly tired of hearing Bitcoin spot ETF news, this week is a critical week for the crypto market, right? We are expecting the SEC to make a decision, whether that is to approve, whether that is to delay, or even potentially reject the Bitcoin spot ETFs. I think regardless of the outcome from the SEC, the expectation, at least from my point of view, is going to be seeing a small lift to the upside and then a massive jump to the downside. Okay, because I do expect retail investors to initially react really bullishly to the news of a Bitcoin spot ETF. But ultimately, I think what's going to happen here is we're going to see a massive move to the downside. What I think what's going to happen here is a load of long positions are going to be opened up the second that the SEC make an approval announcement, for example. If a rejection happens, a load of short positions will open up on the market. And there will be an initial surge, for sure. I would expect a bit of a move to the upside. We may even tap into a new yearly high, maybe around $48,500 towards maybe even $50,000, right? I think those are true possibilities. But those are real short-term movements in relation to a much bigger problem that I'm seeing within the crypto market, and specifically when it comes to Bitcoin. Now, all credit for the next segment of this video goes to one of our Discord members, 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗔𝗥𝗘. I'll put it up here on the screen for you guys. This guy has a really valid point, and it's one worth actually kind of talking about quite a bit, because I've been talking about, a sell the news event for quite some time when it comes to these Bitcoin spot ETFs. And obviously there's a reasonable amount of logic that flows into it. But what 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗔𝗥𝗘 is essentially saying here is actually something that I don't think has been picked up by many people in the space. And that is that all of these Bitcoin spot ETFs have a single point of failure. Okay, and we'll talk about black swan events and how a black swan event is something that is unknown and will basically drag the market down, force retail investors into selling their assets. And with Coinbase being the custodian for all of these Bitcoin spot ETFs is potentially something of a black swan in the making. Should all of these Bitcoin spot ETFs get approved and we see retail investors FOMOing in, setting up their long positions, maybe doing the occasional bit of spot buying here and there, what if something were to happen with Coinbase? What if something from the SEC, lawsuit-wise, was to happen to Coinbase regarding their custody arm? That would be a pretty much catastrophic for Bitcoin spot ETFs and could be the black swan event that basically destroys any potential gains made by crypto and by Bitcoin on the back of the Bitcoin spot ETF approvals, for example. But it can go deeper than that. Okay, we have to understand that Bitcoin spot ETFs are great. You're going to basically see a potential influx of institutional level investment into Bitcoin. But institutional players, institutions generally, they're not stupid. They already know that Bitcoin's price was only a year ago around $17,000. Why would they be FOMOing in at, $45,000 to $50,000 for BTC? It doesn't really make a lot of sense. Instead, they're probably going to be waiting for what I can see in the market and what so many other analysts can see in the market is an inevitable dump. Ultimately, they're going to be looking at cheaper prices. I think there's going to be a lot of FOMO from institutional level investors at around $30,000 Bitcoin. This 30K number isn't just a number that's plucked out of the air. 30K is a previous area of support that we saw back in 2021. and also an area of resistance that we saw in 2022. But we did see a breakout from this area, and we saw it was a great area for great rally to the upside in 2023. But what hasn't happened is a retest of that support. We haven't moved back down to confirm that that area that we broke through was a support area. And so I think the logic here is quite simple and quite clean. A 30% reduction in Bitcoin price on the back of a Bitcoin spot ETF approval, i.e. a sell in the news event from retail investors and FOMO, coming in a little bit from retail investors, but not really any demand from institutional investors, mainly because they're going to have to do their own due diligence, they're going to have to kind of get things approved by a board, and if they're a public company, it's even more complicated. Ultimately, I think it's going to take a fair amount of time before you actually see any money coming on into Bitcoin spot ETFs, even when the product is actually launched. I reckon a good 3 to 6 months before you actually see any money flowing into, or any money of substance flowing into these Bitcoin spot ETFs. Don't get me wrong, I think there will be a flurry of retail investors kind of FOMOing in, but I think ultimately these institutional level investors are likely to hold out. I think they're going to be waiting until we have a nice healthy correction, which I think is pretty much an inevitability in the market. And of course, as I've said many times before on the channel, that dip that we see towards $30,000 is the buy the dip opportunity. It is the one that you want to be buying, not the one that you want to be in fear of. So I think with Coinbase potentially a centralized issue for Bitcoin spot ETFs, we're going to have to watch that space very, very carefully. And of course, institutional investors will also have the same level of concerns. How strong is Coinbase? Lawsuits against Coinbase from the SEC and various other things, right? They're going to have to make sure that everything is squeaky clean. And so I think although Bitcoin spot ETF approvals, rejections, delays are imminent, I think ultimately we're all sick and tired of it. And when we actually finally get the news, all we're going to see is a bit of a nothing burger. We might see a little brief run to the upside as some daft retail investors gamble on the market. But ultimately, I think it's going to lead us down into a bit of a red quarter in 2024. Okay, so quarter one, I'm expecting to be a bit of a sell-off towards, of course, the Bitcoin halving. And halving, I think, will just be in the cumulative phase. And then, of course, I think we'll launch up in quarter two, quarter three, and we might see a brief correction before we get into quarter four. And of course, I think next year, 2025, quarter one is going to be the year that we see some significant growth for Bitcoin and for the crypto market. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. And if you're looking for a little bit more about what is going on with, the price action of Bitcoin, I urge you guys to check this video out where I'm discussing what is going on with Bitcoin on the various different years and cycles of the Bitcoin halving.